Journaling. It's so great. It's so good. In fact, it's so good that every YouTuber might as well be doing it or talking about it. But as many videos as there are, and as many people talking about how they journaled for 1,000 days, they never seem to give you any instruction on how to actually journal and reap the benefits out of journaling. They only talk about the benefits and that's about it. You should journal and buy my course. You know, like what the f am I even supposed to do when it comes to journaling? So today, this is precisely what we're gonna fix. I'm gonna tell you the system that I used that has saved me literally 4 hours a day. Now, before we really get into the rules that I have for myself and how it actually works, I also want to talk about a dichotomy proposed by Nietzsche, which is the Apollonian and Dionysian dichotomy, if you will. If you don't know who they are, they're two Greek gods. Apollo being the god of rationality, order, and truth, whilst Dionysus was the god of ecstasy, wine, partying. Naturally so, what the Western historians and philosophers and even day-to-day self-improvement gurus that you watch tell you to suppress this Dionysian side of yours. They tell you to suppress the emotive, the irrational, and all of that doesn't really bring out any rational improvement or truth, let's say. However, Nietzsche says that we cannot suppress the Dionysian side. Pretty simply said, if one dies, the other one dies too. And Nietzsche will go on to make a point which is kind of nearly equivalent, and correct me please, of saying that the Dionysian side is pretty much everything that makes art human. This is similar to like grabbing dual processing systems and removing one just so that one part of your brain can focus on this part of processing. That makes no sense. Whilst Apollo was the god that gave us rationality and logic thinking, Dionysus was the one that gave us passion and purpose and that drove us toward a goal nearly obsessively. So I developed this journaling system around this idea that both have to be nurtured without harming one another completely. I want to feed into my passions, but I also simultaneously don't want these emotions, these processes, to turn into maladaptive thoughts. I don't want them to really turn against me. So this journaling system, it seeks to bring the best out of both Apollonian and Dionysian systems. Part of these two concepts also bring us to the first bullet point that I'm going to talk about, which is venting versus reappraisal. Now, we might think venting is helpful and all that shebang, and I won't entirely disagree. Venting can be a useful technique for short-term solutions, but there's a key word. It's a short-term solution. Now, there's nothing wrong with venting. However, the better alternative is reappraisal. The reason for this is because venting can actually become more commonly a maladaptive process. In fact, it's been shown plenty of studies that venting increases emotional stimuli, it increases anger, depression, and all these psychological symptoms. So we don't really want that. Now, I actually was venting in a journal for the first year, and that actually cost me a lot of time to the point that I could have just prevented it completely, and yet I didn't. I suffered and lost a lot of time as a result of it. Hence why I'm making this video, so you don't have to waste time. But reappraisal is the best alternative. In fact, reappraisal is all about grabbing a negative situation, a certain stimuli that can potentially be perceived as negative, and taking it for a obviously acceptable and realistic enough outlook so you can empower yourself by these outlooks. So whilst allowing you to talk about your emotions and particular experiences, you shift the perspective away from yourself. You literally detach the personal connotations that a situation might have and view the event, the stimuli, the situation as it is in a third person eagle's eye view perspective. This also goes in line with a CBT thought diagram. In case you haven't seen it, it's on the screen. And this goes about how our thoughts influence our behaviors, how our behaviors influence our feelings and whatnot. And all of these stem from a basis of core beliefs. So this is an essential concept of growth and journaling, obviously, which is all about changing one aspect, one thing, for example, changing your thought processes to later change your behavior, your feelings, and your core beliefs. But what you need to consider is that sometimes emotions, feelings, and certain events aren't a call to inhibiting emotions, but rather a call to action. The second thing for the journaling system is cultivation. But cultivation of what? Cultivation of our mind. If we want to improve our mindset, we need to improve and change our behavior, our actions. Self-discipline is an act of cultivation. Cultivating a mind, cultivating a positive identity, it's all about gathering evidence. So for example, if you're trying to gather evidence that you're healthy, you would want to do things that are healthy for you. So maybe you exercise more often, you start eating a bit better, you start losing weight. So this might involve doing a to-do list, making your goals clear, and really making a path for yourself as evident as possible. That might also include searching for solutions, looking for problems to solve in your life. Now, while Socratic reasoning is a great way to try and solve your problems or try and find a purpose, I'm going to share a tip here, which is simple inversion. It's inversion. Now, this is probably the most used technique in my journaling book when it comes to solving problems, and it's a game changer. It simplifies the process a lot better because our brain is actually mentally biased toward negative connotations, negative traits of something, and it's literally called the negativity bias. We can pick out negative things better. So instead of asking, how can I play the piano more often, you would want to ask, how can I play the piano less often? On the topic of cultivation of the mind too are quantifiable and non-quantifiable metrics. Now, obviously, if you're setting yourself a goal, which is what most people do, it's all about looking at the goal on a daily basis, maybe weekly basis, measuring them, seeing how you are on track. And it's obviously important to change your outlook, your outcome results, your goals based on how you're doing now. But most importantly are the non-quantifiable metrics. This is what a lot of YouTubers, a lot of people will disregard completely. How are you feeling? That is the most important metric. Now, obviously that means it's subjective, it's a subjective experience, so I can't tell you how you're gonna go about this process. But it's gonna let you know whether you're on the right track or you're not, whether you're doing something intuitively correct or if you're not. Now, this is different to feeling like you're making no progress and you're just kind of stuck on a pit of progress. Now, what I would tell you there is that you shouldn't focus on the quantifiable metrics or the actual numbers, the analytical part. It doesn't really matter. What matters the most is whether or not you're enjoying this process. You could be freelancing and be hating that freelancing job as much as you want and make a shit ton of money. Is it really worth it if you feel like shit, if it's taking a detrimental impact on your psychological health? And these are actual questions to be asked because nobody really talks about it. So make sure you're actually checking in with yourself, you're changing the goal accordingly to your health, to your current moment, to the analytics of the moment, and make them realistic. So the part of cultivation, the point I want to make here is that cultivating your mind is actually cultivating your identity, knowing your path, and problem resolution, because in a way, knowing your path is the first problem you're going to solve. And so as you take this path, you're going to solve more problems to get you from point A to point B. And lastly is purpose. Purpose can fall into cultivation of the mind, but this is so important that I literally have to set it apart in another section. And it's precisely that. It's knowing the trajectory you want to take in life. It's knowing what life you want to essentially live. Creating our direction and knowing what path we have to take is essentially knowing what we're going toward, but it's also knowing what we're running away from. And that might mean creating an anti-vision. And this is something that you have to review maybe on a semester basis or every year. And this is something I literally do actually every trimester for me personally, because it's just kind of like a ritual I've developed where I would lock myself in a room and write, what is my purpose? Why am I in this floating rock speck of dust in this universe? And it's such a daunting question for some people because it means that they have to be aware of their own faults. They have to wake themselves up from a deep, deep slumber of commodity. And that's precisely why I want you to maybe, for example, take that first step to go about and looking for your purpose. Why are you on this planet? Because what you're eventually going to run into is that you're going to die. So this is the system that I've been using for the past 2 years, and honestly, it's helped me immensely. And the reason I say it's liberated me so many hours per week is because by having this mental clarity, it's allowed me to sit down and do work when I didn't feel like it, do work when I was tired, and yet I felt happy doing that work because 1, I had mental clarity. 2, I had a goal. I knew where I wanted to go and I knew what I wanted at the end of this year, and I actually achieved it. If it hadn't been for this system, I probably wouldn't be on this level of success, if you will. I probably wouldn't be doing this. I probably would have wasted a lot more time, which is why I'm making videos for you, so you know how to journal, so you know how to take the proper steps and not waste a lot of time. I wasted a whole year. And this system, honestly, it's super simple and it still helped me a lot. It's helped me immensely, especially throughout the turmoils that I've had to endure. And honestly, I recommend it to everyone. So let me know if you got any feedback. You should watch my video on procrastination. Anyway, I'll catch you later, alligator.